Saints 35, Browns 14. This is, of course, after further review. Matt Moscona, we are going to react to Matthias and see what he thought about the Saints win. I'm interested to see if he is going to be on the side of things where he's excited for the Saints to win, happy for him, see what he thinks about the new look of the team under the one and only Darren Rizzi, or if he's part of the contingent that was hoping the Saints would lose to get a better draft pick. Let's go ahead and see what Matt thinks, and we'll react along the way.
New Orleans Saints beat the Cleveland Browns 35-14. You know, if you didn't watch a play of the game, and just judging by the Saints' record, I'm guessing a lot of you probably didn't watch a play of the game, and you...
What? Is that a real thing? Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, listen. I'm deep into sport. Like the amount of sports that I watch, some of the college basketball games that I watch, my God, you wouldn't even believe it, okay? Hockey, NFL, whatever's on, I'm watching it. Are there really like Saints fans or whatever that just aren't watching the games? I couldn't imagine. What are y'all doing on Sundays? What do people that don't watch sports do? I couldn't imagine not watching the Saints game. If the Saints were 0-16 and we had one game to go, I'm watching that game. If they were 2 arguably you'd want to watch that more to see if they actually go winless. But if they were a 2-win team, last game of the season, I'm watching it. It's on. It's one. Like it's a game. It blows my mind if. Like, what is the demographic that is not watching the game but watching this recap? I would say very low.
Just saw the final score. You go, man, Saints rolled them, huh?
They did.
What a day.
Beat their ass.
Not exactly.
What?
That game was tied at 14 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. We had 8
and the
yards
Saints
of play.
outscored the Browns 21-0 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we beat the hell out of them.
That's a hell of a way to finish.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for the second consecutive week, the Saints have found a way to win by making winning plays.
Yeah, you know what finding the way to win is? 8 yards per play. You know what the way to win was against the Falcons? 7 yards per play. That's how you win. I mean, I don't know. Really good quarterback play in the Browns game. Really good offense. Did enough on defense. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Pretty good performance, pretty dominant win.
First quarter. Browns are going for it on a 4th and 1. Demario Davis.
Stuffed.
Boom. Big stop.
Yep. Get some.
Turnover on downs. Saints would score. That would be Taysom Hill's first touchdown of the day. Can you play that one, by the way? Taysom Hill's first touchdown of the day.
Taysom keeps it.
Okay, I gotta skip this. I gotta skip that. I don't want to get busted for an audio strike.
You're tied at 14 in the fourth quarter. You're facing a 4th down and 2 from the Cleveland 33. Look, consider the situation. Consider the situation. It's 4th and 2. It's a tie ball game in the fourth quarter. A field goal right here. 50-yarder at the 33. 50-yarder and Groupie's been good. 50-yarder gives you the lead. Instead,
I'm not going to get into the math and all that stuff, but like kicking that field goal would have been such a bad decision. Such a bad decision. I mean, when I was watching it, it never, ever, 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 ever went into my head to be like, yeah, maybe we should kick this.
Kicking the field goal, we're going for it. 4th and 2, put Taysom in the single wing, and this is what happened.
Saints. I gotta get all the audio. These audio clips are trying to get me struck.
And touchdown. And oh, by the way, Hill would add a third for good measure with a 75-yarder around left end. Also out of the single wing. You see, the Saints' best offense on the day was when Derek Carr wasn't at quarterback, oddly enough.
Carr was really good. I mean, I know Matt doesn't like Carr, but Carr was really good in that game. I'm pretty sure Carr was like, I mean, I guess I'll pull it up. All right, so this is Kevin Cole. This is quarterback grading and efficiency for just week 11. Vertical, EPA per play. Horizontal, PFF offensive grade. Carr is the, like, 1, 2, 3. He's like the fourth-ish quarterback, fifth quarterback on just pure PFF grade. EPA-wise, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's like 6. So somewhere in the neighborhood of, like, I mean, pretty close. You could pretty much say that he had a top 5 performance this week, I would say. And I if I had to pick one, I would pick EPA over PFF grade, but that's kind of splitting hairs there. This is another chart. This is from Ben Baldwin. Vertical, EPA per play. Horizontal is completion percentage above expected. Okay, we've talked about that stat before. So it takes a bunch of stuff into account as far as like your accurate throws, catchable ball rate, completion percentage, things like that. And then it basically extrapolates it out into, okay, well, how good did you do above what was expected of you? If we do this, Carr, again, really good. Carr was better than Josh Allen, like better than really good performances. He's up here. EPA-wise is the same as the last chart, and then completion percentage above expected right there. So even on this chart, he's like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's probably like the sixth best quarterback performance for the week. So, I mean, there's no other way to look at it that Carr had a really good game. And he has been good this year. Like, has Carr been, an MVP? No, but he's been pretty good, like pretty efficient on all metrics, EPA, adjusted EPA, all that stuff, been pretty good. At the lowest, I would say you could probably say Carr's been like the 14th-ish best quarterback in the NFL this year. You could probably drop him a little bit for like the injuries and some of that stuff, like like the Chiefs game or whatever. But I mean, there's some bad mixed in there. But overall, he's been pretty good. And last week, I mean, against the Browns, he was really good. So, and against the Falcons, the touchdown passes to MVS were really, really good throws. So, I understand if people aren't sold on Carr. And I'm not saying I'm sold on Carr, but I can tell you that he was good. Like you got to kind of be objective at some point and just be like, look, he was good. It is what it is. I think if you're, constantly bashing Carr just because he is Carr, it kind of hurts the analysis.
Taysom Hill took all 3 of those snaps directly on all 3 of his touchdowns. And that, of course, was the margin for the New Orleans Saints in the game where they won 35-14. What did
I mean, on a similar note, like, couldn't you say, which I think is ridiculous to say, but couldn't you say the Saints were better running the ball when Alvin Kamara was on the sideline and Taysom Hill was in the backfield? It's like, I mean, the plays were better. Like, Taysom had better plays in those moments, yes. When Taysom was taking the ball in, like, the quarterback power, those running plays were better than the Alvin Kamara plays. Does that correlate to Taysom Hill is a better runner of the football than Alvin Kamara? No. Like, it's not – they're not one for one. They're not the same thing. It's like, I mean, it's easy to say it, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And I don't think anybody would say Taysom Hill is the better running back or Taysom Hill is, we're better at running the ball when Alvin Kamara is not on the field. That would be crazy, right?
Day for Taysom Hill. I think also, I'll get to back to Taysom in a second. You talk about winning plays. Special teams were great for New Orleans again. You did return a punt for a touchdown that got called back. When
Dante Pettis is so much better than Jermaine Jackson. And look, like Jermaine Jackson, we talked about it a lot when he was returning punts. He was doing everything he could to mess that up. Every single punt return, I'm sitting here like, this is a muff. I mean, he's about to muff it. He's about to fumble. Something's about to happen. Nothing looked good. Nothing. I mean, Dante Pettis, not saying Dante Pettis is, the next coming of Devin Hester, but Dante Pettis was pretty good back there.
Pettis stepped out of bounds, but Hopkins, maybe the special teams gods are just smiling on you because you elevated a special teams coordinator to your head coach, because now all of a sudden nobody can make a kick in the Superdome. Younghoe Koo misses 2 last week, gets 1 blocked, and on Sunday, Hopkins misses his first one. The second one right before half is from 32 yards. He misses it. There's a defensive holding on the Saints. He gets another crack from 27 yards and pulls it left again. I mean, Maybe it is just the
I can
football
make a
god
27-yarder.
smiling down on the New Orleans Saints for promoting a special
No
teams
problem.
coach. By the way, John Harbaugh was a special teams coach. He's done pretty well in Baltimore.
was.
Just saying. So you've had a lot of things go your way in close games. That's a sign of a winning team. It's a sign of a team that believes in the guy standing at the front of the room. What's different? It's obvious what's different. What's different is they believe in Darren Rizzi. They're hyped for Darren Rizzi. They're playing hard for him. They're making winning plays. Taysom's day was great. If you haven't seen this, I'm sure most of you have by now. Taysom Hill on Sunday with his day became just the second player in NFL history with 25 rushing touchdowns, 10 passing touchdowns, and 10 receiving touchdowns. The only other is Frank Gifford, who's in the Hall of Fame. By the way, he played football in the 1950s. Yeah. So it just goes to show you it's been 70 years since you...
Yeah, I mean, I said it in a couple other videos, but I mean, you could really argue, like, what Taysom did on Sunday is the greatest game ever played in the NFL by a player. I mean, you look at, like, I was having this conversation, and someone said, well, what about Kamara's 6 touchdown game? And it's like, that is good, but we've seen running backs, have these kind of performances. We've seen, like, that's being good at one thing. Like some of the greatest, quarterback performances or wide receiver performances or whatever. But to see a player basically like live in a time machine and run for 140 yards, catch 8 passes for 50 yards, play quarterback, throw passes, and then play special teams, kick return. Like, it's not like you're just the gunner. You are returning kicks. I mean, it is crazy what Taysom is, and it's crazy what he does. He really is playing how Jim Thorpe and these Red Grange and these guys, he is playing how they played when they also drove the bus and coached the team. It is such an anomaly. It is such a unicorn type thing.
You had a player doing the types of things on a football field week in and week out that Taysom Hill is doing. There's a conversation about the Hall of Fame with Taysom Hill, which you can roll your eyes and laugh, and I
think he should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, I look at the Hall of Fame a little differently than some people. I think the Hall of Fame is basically a museum for the NFL or for the greatness or for great players or for whatever. And I think Taysom is deserved of some kind of like something there because he is part of NFL history. Like, he is so unique. It is a part of the game. Is he a Hall of Fame player? Like, those are probably two different things, but he certainly is part of he should be a footnote. He should be involved in the NFL's history. And so if that takes place at the Hall of Fame, makes sense to me.
Would, like, for me,
there was a story, I think it was Buster Posey. Someone double check me. I'm pretty sure Buster Posey played college baseball at Florida State. I hope I'm getting this right. I'm pulling this out of thin air. And I'm pretty sure in one game he played all 9 positions. And it's one of those things you hear and you're like, what? How good is this guy? Like, at a huge collegiate program, a guy's going to play 9 positions in one baseball game? Like, what are we talking about here? That's what I feel like with Taysom, where you hear something and you're like, he did what? Like, if a kid does this in a 2A football game, you're thinking, man, like, this is unbelievable. The fact that he did it in an NFL game is bananas.
Taysom Hill would not be a Hall of Famer, but what I will say is a random tangent here. The Pro Football Hall of Fame committee elected Devin Hester as a returner. He is a specialist that they elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Taysom Hill would not be a Hall of Famer as a running back. He would not be a Hall of Famer as a quarterback. He would not be a Hall of Famer as a receiver. He would not be a Hall of Famer as a returner. He would not be a Hall of Famer as a tight end. But when you have one guy that does all of those things very well, he might be a Hall of Famer. I don't know. We'll have that conversation another day. Just file it.
Taysom Hill is more deserving of the Hall of Fame than Andrew Luck. I'll tell you that much.
By the way. Taysom was great. Again, all 3 touchdowns came out of the single wing when Derek Carr wasn't under center, which I think is very telling.
Again, all 3 touchdowns came out of the single wing, and all rushing touchdowns happened when Alvin Kamara didn't have the ball in his hands. I think that's very telling. Is it telling? No, it's not telling at all. It means absolutely nothing.
Also look at this day and I go, how in the world was Marquez Valdez-Scantling unemployed?
Because he has trouble catching. Because he's had the drops in the past and he's been relatively ineffective. But in this system, in this role, you could say the same thing about Jordan Mason for the 49ers, where it's like, how is Jordan Mason how is he a third string running back? How is Jordan Mason? How is he not a starting running back on another team? Like, what's going on here? And then it just goes to more of this, like, it's these systems where MVS is not being asked to do something that he's not good at doing. What he's good at doing, running down the field. What he's good at doing is deep balls, pause. What he's good at doing is getting the ball and making an explosive play. What he's not good at doing, dig routes, in routes, crossing routes, stuff like that. Same with Shaheed. Like Shaheed, you ask him to do what we're asking MVS to do, successful. If Bub Means wasn't hurt, Bub Means could probably step in and be the burner guy. Like, it's a specific skill set, and in a system that needs that, whoever's in that specific role is going to find some success. And MVS is getting getting those results.
I understand the Bills made a trade. They got Amari Cooper. MVS hadn't been popping for them. But the fact that he was unemployed is stunning, because very clear. Look, there's 32 NFL teams, all of whom employ 5 or 6 receivers on their game day roster, not to mention practice squads as well. You're not going to tell me there's 150 players in the world better at wide receiver than Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I mean, he's played 2 games with the Saints. He's got 6 catches, 3 of them are for deep touchdowns. If nothing else, he still gives you that elite ability to stretch the field. And that has sort of reinvigorated the Saints passing game, because when you lost Rashid Shaheed, you lost that component. You have it back now with Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Yes.
Also, what a day for Taliesin Fuanga. Maybe the most understated part of the day. And we did talk about this as far as what to watch as we're going into the game on Sunday. And when we were here on Friday doing our final previews and predictions, was how did Taliesin Fuanga match up against Myles Garrett, the defending NFL Defensive Player of the Year? Well, how about this from our guy Ross Jackson over at LouisianaSports.net. Per Next Gen Stats, Myles Garrett had just 2 pressures against the Saints. That's the lowest total of a single.
What the hell was that? What just happened? Is there a Labrador retriever in the studio? What just took place? Was somebody falling asleep? Got a lot of questions here. I just blew my mind. So before the game, I was reading, I think it was on the Action Network. I was reading an article about their preview. And the article said, the Saints offensive line sucks. Myles Garrett's really good, so Myles Garrett's going to wreck the game. All right, Browns win. And it's like, man, that's a really old school way of looking at it, isn't it? How many times do we say it where it is not just defensive lineman versus offensive lineman, whoever wins, wins. That's not how it is anymore. It is coordinators can take them out of the play. I mean, we saw what happened with Michael Parsons, and now we saw what happened with Myles Garrett. All right? It is no longer good defensive lineman versus weak offensive line equals 15 sacks. It's not how it is. Now, if the offensive coordinator allows that to happen, it certainly can happen. If the offensive coordinator is good enough and can minimize that and can scheme him out of it, and we see what happened today, and we see what happened against the Cowboys. Taliesin Fuanga is a stud. I'm kind of coming around on the Saints offensive line. The Saints offensive line, is it good? No. Is it a dumpster fire? No. And is it just kind of an average-ish offensive line when healthy? Yeah. Yes, it is. And it could be even better. If we nail, another draft pick, if we get another Taliesin Fuanga to play guard or whatever we end up getting. But all of a sudden now you're looking around like, well, I feel pretty good about where Trevor Penning's development is. I feel pretty good about Taliesin Fuanga as a cornerstone left tackle. Okay, I feel pretty good about this, even if Penning is just, here for a short time, not a long time, and he ends up going somewhere else, and we draft a Taliesin Fuanga 2.0 to be a right tackle. If we're rocking and rolling for the next 6, 7, 8 years with Taliesin Fuanga and Taliesin Fuanga 2.0 at the tackle positions, I'm all right with that. So yeah, Taliesin Fuanga has been really, 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 really good. And he's done it against really, really, really good ends, for sure.
Single game for pressures for Garrett this season. His 8% pressure percentage was his lowest of 2024.
Yeah, that's saying something.
So Taliesin Fuanga, in his first go-round against the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, pitched a shutout on Myles Garrett. After the game, Derek Carr talked about the day that Fuanga had against Myles Garrett.
What a great challenge for him, because we did leave him out there a couple times. You know, you can't always chip and do certain things 100% of the time. There's certain concepts and routes you just live with, and you got to do it. And I thought he did a fantastic job. And what an experience for him to go against one of the more dominant players our league has ever seen. You know, and to just grow in confidence and continue to get better. And he'll see things he'd want better or want all those things. But for him to get a taste of playing against Myles, what that's like, and for him to handle himself really well.
Stud.
Can we get a count in there? By the way, he also dropped in our league. I was listening to that last night. I texted Muse at like 6 o'clock.
In our league.
So do we replace DA now with Derek Carr in our league?
I think we might have to, because DA's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to keep the drop going.
Give me let's get an our league counter going for Derek Carr.
Players our league has ever.
Kind of skipped over it there.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to isolate it. See, our league.
In our league.
Great day for Taliesin Fuanga. A couple of other observations from the Saints win over the Browns. A little bit of a resurgence for the Saints run defense. 20 rushes for 66 yards for Cleveland, just 3.3 yards per carry. The Saints, over this losing streak, had become one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Of course, against Tampa and Denver, back-to-back games allowing 200 rushing yards.
Not good.
It's nice to see them step up. And look, Nick Chubb had been healthy, getting healthier. And
Chubb was all right. Like Chubb, I mean, if I remember correctly, Chubb was like 11 for 55 or something like that. So I mean, Chubb was effective. It was just everyone else.
And they've been running well. So the fact that the Saints fared well in run defense was encouraging. Look, there was some that was not great. Like you lost the turnover battle 2-0. How about that?
I mean, the fact that that's why at the beginning of the video, when Matt said it wasn't a dominant performance, if you win the YPP by 2 yards and you lose the turnover battle by 2, but you win by 3 touchdowns, like, hey, congratulations, that is a dominant gets victory. I mean, like, that's saying something. And this game could have easily been 42 to 17, or this could have got out of control if Taysom doesn't fumble. The interception is whatever. I mean, the interception, the fumble is way worse than the interception. But fumbling basically on the goal line, that is brutal. Right before the half, you punch that in, whole different story. So the fumble is really bad. And then never turning over Jameis Winston, not picking him off, not forcing him into any kind of risky throws or whatever. But yeah, I mean, what a job. The pass defense was bad. The pass defense, I would say, was the biggest loser of the day for the Saints. I mean, I am very concerned about what Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are going to do to the Saints secondary.
Taysom had 2 turnovers. By the way, his deep ball still looks like a high school punt. I mean, he's just so bad at throwing the deep ball. And then fumbled in the red zone. But when you have a day like Taysom did, it can make you forget about your 2 turnovers. You did allow Jameis to throw for 395. One of the things we talked about wanting to see as well was how did Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry fare as your boundary corners after having traded Lattimore and, of course, the injury to Paulson Adebo. Taylor allowed both touchdowns, including an 89.
Taylor is just so aggressive. Like he's made, like, it was crazy to watch because some throws, it was like, okay, this is some incredible coverage. Then sometimes he just either tries to undercut the route or it's just like a hair off. And that's where all of a sudden it's a huge gain, like on Jerry Jeudy's where Taylor was just kind of trailing and then Jeudy got free, or even the other touchdown in the corner. Like Taylor's right there. It should have been picked off, but Taylor just got slightly over aggressive, and next thing you know, it's a touchdown. So Alontae Taylor's awesome. Like I think he's the man. But I think he might just be too, I don't know if he's too physical. I don't know if he's too aggressive for that, to get that kind of target share. Like if he's really getting targeted, he's going to give up big plays because that's just who he is. But I think he's in the same breath. I think he's awesome. I think he's really, really good. He's been one of our best defenders, maybe our best defender this season.
9-yard catch and run to Jerry Jeudy when they were in man coverage with no safety help. It's not great. There was a lot that wasn't great in this game, but you made winning plays. You finished strong. You had a good game plan, getting Taysom involved, and clearly,
I mean, really, the only thing that wasn't great was, I think, our pass defense.
It paced you to a win, 35-14. A lot of people are asking, do the Saints have a path back to the playoffs? I don't think so.
They do have a path. How realistic that path is, I don't know. Both paths are kind of the same. Obviously, the two paths are winning the division or getting a wild card. Both paths are kind of the same, where we need Atlanta to really fall. Like, we need Atlanta and Tampa. We need them to start losing some games they shouldn't lose. Simultaneously, we need to basically win out. We can afford like a loss, 2 losses at the absolute most. Two losses probably not. So we could probably afford a loss, maybe 2. But that's tough. When you have Green Bay in prime time, Washington, kind of tough. We got to beat the Rams. You got to beat the Rams. Got to win that game. Got to take care of business against the bad teams, the Raiders, the Giants. But and then the Bucs on the road at the end of the year. But the Saints do have a path. They're not mathematically eliminated, but it's the worst kind of path, because just like in baseball, you always hear about like you're not controlling your own destiny. You need other teams to lose or whatever. That's where the Saints are. The Saints really aren't controlling their own destiny. They are to it. They are in the sense of like, hey, if they win out, in that sense they do kind of control it. But they need a ton of help from Atlanta and Tampa and all other teams in the NFC, because if we're chasing a wild card, we need other teams in the NFC to start losing too. So
I understand Atlanta scuffling a little bit. They got blown out at Denver yesterday, but Atlanta's still 2 games ahead of you right now.
Yeah.
And
remember, so you have to win the South. We're not going to win on tiebreakers. So you have to be a game up on Atlanta. So that makes it a little more difficult too.
If you look at Tampa as well, the thing to really consider is Tampa's schedule. I know Tampa's sitting there at 4-6 right now, but when you look at what Tampa has left, they're at the Giants. They play at the Panthers. They get the Raiders at home.
Yeah.
Then they go to LA to take on the Chargers, which is a tough game. They go to Dallas, then home against the Panthers, home against the Saints.
Pretty easy. Like that's the problem, is that Atlanta still plays Carolina. You just heard Tampa's schedule. Like, you're gonna need some major slip ups. You're gonna need some slip ups that are on par with the Saints slipping up against Carolina. That's what you're gonna need. You're gonna need Atlanta or Tampa to start losing games that they should not lose.
It's realistic to think that they'll go 5-1. Tampa will down the stretch. So I still think Tampa should probably be the favorite to win the division, just based on what they have remaining. I mean, they faced a horrible gauntlet this season. And Tampa's lost 4 in a row, which is brutal. But it was to the Ravens, the Falcons, the Chiefs, and the Niners. They'll have an opportunity to get right down the stretch. And then, like, I look at New Orleans. I mean, I think they got 2 more wins in them. I think they can win at New York against the Giants, and I think they can beat the Raiders at home. Anything else would be lanyap. Hard to imagine you're going to beat the Rams. The Commanders are going to be playing for a division title. I don't think you're better than Washington. I don't think you're going to win at Green Bay on December the 23rd. And then I think Tampa's going to be probably playing for the division that final weekend. It's hard to imagine going there and getting a win. Could you? Yes, it's the NFL. But
yeah, I mean, to that, it's like, okay, I can see that. I think the big one, like I said, the big swing one is the Rams game, because the Rams are in a brutal schedule spot. They played prime time, then they flew east to play the Patriots, then they fly back to play, I believe, prime time again, then they fly to New Orleans, which isn't West Coast, East Coast, but still long travel, to play a rested Saints team who's coming off of a bye, who also played 2 home games. So the Saints have been home at that point for almost a month, right? So you got one team, the Rams, who's played 2 primetime games at that point with 3 basically coast-to-coast trips. Like, that's tough. that is a really tough situational spot. Now, does it make up for Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp versus the Saints secondary? Does it make up for Matthew Stafford? Does it make up for Sean McVay? I don't know about that. Like, roster-wise, matchup-wise, horrible matchup for the Saints. But sometimes the great equalizer is that, like, rest versus tired and scheduling and all those things. So we are going to get the Rams at their most vulnerable as far as that. We got to take advantage. We got 2 weeks for our coaching staff to come up with a game plan. You beat the Rams, you have a legitimate chance. You lose to the Rams, yeah, the playoffs is probably over, because then you would have to win out, and that includes primetime on the road against Green Bay. That includes, Washington. So you got to beat the Rams. You got to win that game, because if you beat the Rams, it can afford you to lose against Green Bay or lose against Washington or whatever. It's not, it's not fully over. So it all hinges on that Rams game. Similar to last year, where it was like, look, we got to go out there and we got to win that game, because we knew we had put ourselves so far behind the 8 ball. We go out to LA on Thursday night and get absolutely embarrassed in front of our friends and family. But, so December 1st.
I don't think the Saints are going to have some resurgence and make a run to the postseason. I just want to see some of these guys continue to play better and go win some games. So, and then you go into the offseason preparing for what is next for this organization. But a nice win on Sunday, getting a win over Cleveland 35-14. Hey, thanks so much.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.